Hello everyone and welcome to Tech with Robert, the Get Started with T-SQL course. In this lecture we're going to take a look at the aggregate functions min and max. But before we get started, don't forget to subscribe to my channel, give a thumbs up on the video if you like what I do. That really helps me to know what I do well and if you guys want me to improve or focus on anything in the future lectures. So without further ado, let's dive right in. So we've taken a look at how we can summarize data using the sum function, and also how we can count the different type of ways we can count rows using the count function. And so there are two more aggregate functions called min and max. And what they do, what min does, it's looping through a set of data and finding the smallest value between all of the values. And so what that means is, let's say for example we've written this query before. We say we want to select the order date, and then we want to say the sum of the sales amount. We're gonna name it as total sales, and then we say from the fact internet sales, and we group it by the order date like this. And so and so now, for example, when we do it like this, we see here that since we've used the order by here on the order date, we see that the first date we have here is 2012, the 29th of December. And so this is the smallest date in the data set that we have here. And if we were to reverse this and just say that we want to order it, but instead of ascending order, we want to take it in a descending order. So we see that the largest date here is 2014, the 28th of January. But there's an easier way, and another way how we can determine this and sort of see this is that using the min and the max functions. So if we wanted to see what is the smallest value in the order date column in the fact internet sales table, we could say, let me just say here for the fact, we could say we want to select the min, and then we specify the date here. So we say the min order date from fact internet sales, and we see that we will get this here, what we get when we order it by the order date from the smallest to highest. We see here that we got the 29th of December 2010, and we get the same value here because this is the min, the smallest value in that column. And so we could name this first purchase, first transaction date, for example. And so this is the first date where anyone did a transaction in our table. And so in the same way, we could also say max order date as latest transaction date, for example. So now when we run this, we see that the smallest, the first date, the smallest date is this date here, and the largest date is this date over here. And so in the same way, so now we've covered the sum, the count, and the min-max function. As you can see now, we can do some pretty good calculations. We can do some pretty neat calculations here to sort of browse and get to know the data, because now we can say, if we just use all of these that we've learned so far, we can see that we wanted to say the sum of the sales amount, for example. I would say that this is the total sales. Then we want to count all of the rows here to say number of transactions. And for example, here we want to see, so what is the min sales amount? So what is the smallest transaction amount that we got in our data? And so we say this is the smallest transaction amount. And then for the same way here, we could say that we want the max as largest transaction amount. And so now when we run this query, we see that we're beginning to do some pretty good analysis here, and we really get to know the data. So we see that, okay, the total sales here is this value here, and then the number of transactions is this amount here. This was the first date when we got a purchase, And this is the last date we got to purchase. Our smallest transaction amount is this amount here, and the largest one is this here. And we also now, if we wanted to, we could split this and say, okay, this is all very interesting, but this is for the whole data set. What if we wanted to see it by the year? And now we know how to do that. So we can say we want the year of the order date as order year. And now we know that we have to use that in the group by. And so we say we want to group by the year of the order date as well here. And we want to order it by one ascending order, so from smallest to lowest. So now we can see here that, okay, so for 2010, this was our total sales. We had this many transactions. We only had sales here for about 3 days. And this was the smallest transaction, and this was the largest transaction. And so now you see that we really, with only these 4 different aggregate functions, are learning how to group the data. We see here that we can do some pretty good analysis and really get to know the data that we're working on. And so I'm hoping that you guys starting to understand and see why it's so important and good to learn about these aggregate functions, because you can do some pretty good analysis on the data. And so this is it for this lecture. I wanted to cover the min and the max, how you can get the smallest value and the largest value in a column from a table. And in the next lecture, we're going to continue with aggregate functions, but we're going to take a look at the average function. So I will see you guys in the next lecture.